What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Action Network podcast presented by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. I'm your host, Chris Raybon. This is your NFL week number 10 betting preview. We will discuss our favorite sides, totals, teasers, survivor picks, underdog, money lines, and of course, crack open our weekly Sunday six-pack of Against the Spread bets. I'll do it with the help of my co-host, the Prime Minister of Degenerate Nation, Stucky. What's up, man? Good week last week. Came so close to sweeping Dallas and had ended up with that Houston 2.5. Just didn't get there, but good week. So good shit.
It was a good week for the pod. I never want to talk about last Sunday ever again. That was probably the most painful group of losses that I've ever had. I mean, Dallas putting up like 500 yards of offense. Game went exactly how I projected. Dak eating, CeeDee Lamb and Ferguson destroying the Eagles in the slot, moving up and down the field. Dallas offensive line controlling the game, and they get 6 points in 4 drives inside the 30 to end the game. Dak steps out of bounds, just needed the 2 points to push. They could stop at the 1, either at the 5 to end the game. I mean, it was excruciating. 3 fumbles that the Eagles recover. I mean, just every break possible in that game, and the Cowboys still should have won. And then you had the Texans, who averaged 8 yards per play, outgained the Bucs by 200 yards, but don't have a kicker, so can't kick the extra point. The Panthers can't get home for our tees, even though they held the Colts had under 200 yards of offense. Teams with under 200 yards of offense were 1-36 straight up in over the last 37 games. And the Panthers couldn't even cover 8.5 because they threw 2 pick sixes, and Bryce Young does another pick at the end of the game. And was there something else? As always, it's on the
over.
Next week.
The over. You had like 21 first quarter points in the. I mean, it wasn't for the pod, but I think you had the over on Bengals. I had
the over.
Bills. That was going like way over, and then it just died out. But
yeah, it was a painful week of some losses, but at least there were some easy wins, like the Chiefs and Ravens rolled. But yeah, there were some just excruciating losses. So we've had some horrendous beats on the 6-pack, like your safety, the Ravens against the Cardinals last week, the Cowboys and Texans. So that's a good sign going forward for some positive variance. But as always, we're on the next week. Let's get to week 10.
Let's do it. And before we jump into Thursday Night Football, just a reminder that Sean Kerner, our guy, the odds maker, will be chopping it up with everybody on the free Action Network Discord server, as usual, this week during Thursday Night Football. If you're looking for a place to ask him and many of our other experts your questions about fantasy, props, betting, whatever, or you just want to hang out with other gamblers during a game, join the Action Network Discord for free by following the link in this episode description. All right, let's get right into the Thursday Night Football preview. And we got the Panthers going to Chicago to take on the Bears. Bears favored by 3.5. The total's down to 38.5. Looks like it's going to be Tyson Bagent going up against Bryce Young here. This is, you and I talked about this on Happy Hour. There's just a lot of bad quarterbacks in the league this year. A lot of backups and young guys, inexperienced guys starting. And I mean, for Tyson Bagent to be laying 3.5, that seems a bit much. But I mean, the Panthers have been horrible. So how you feeling about this one?
Yeah, I look for reasons not to bet Thursday Night Football. I mean, just look at this game. I'm not betting this game. There's no chance I'm backing Bagent as a favorite. There's no chance I'm trusting Bryce Young in this Panthers offense right now. I mean, some of the pick sixes that he had also were just gifts, like just elementary throws. So yeah, this is an easy pass for me. I have no interest in betting. I think I show a little bit of value on the Panthers with Bagent starting, but so if I had to bet it, I would bet the Panthers. A fun prop, if you have like $5, throw it on tie. this is the type of game that would end in a tie. And it's actually beneficial to the Bears, right? If the Bears were like a smart organization, but they're not. They like traded basically a second round pick for Sweat, and a second round pick for Chase Claypool. But a tie would help them. This is just a draft celebration for Bears fans. They have the third pick right now. The Panthers have the second pick. The Bears have the Panthers pick. So any win will hurt their draft positioning. So actually a tie is the most beneficial outcome for Chicago. So yeah, I know I'm reaching for when I'm talking about a tie and draft positioning. No, I got nothing here. I don't want to talk about this game.
Yeah, I mean, maybe bet overtime too. That's kind of the next best thing, a little more likely. But I agree. I mean, the Panthers are the right side, I think. But I said it before the season. I'm not betting on the Panthers pretty much this year, and it's worked out well. What do they have? One cover so far this year. So yeah, that's worked out. Last year I was the Panthers whisperer. This year, just straight faded them.
You taped your mouth shut. You're not even. Just refuse to whisper.
I refuse. Like it's certain things. Like I have a part of my handicapping is, and I think you're like this too. Like I can see the negative sometimes better than I can even see the positive, which is kind of exactly backwards from how I live my life. I mean, I tend to be optimistic, but I could just see the Panthers like face planting. Like it was just Frank Reich, the Fitterer is just bad organization, man. But I mean, you can't lay 3.5 with Bagent. So I guess primetime unders, they continue to kill non-divisional primetime unders that drop more than 1 point are 54 and 23, 70% since 2016, including 7 and 3 this season. So that's probably your best bet if you're looking to get some action on this game. All right, let's jump right into the week number 10 Sunday six pack.
Thirsty for action? Let's crack open the Sunday six pack.
All right, so good week for us, 34-30, close race. You, sir, are up first in week number 10. Where are you going?
All right, for my first pick of the week 10 Sunday six pack, I'm going with the Houston Texans +7, -115 is out there. It doesn't matter for this contest, pushes or losses, but I would look for the 7, obviously a key number. -115 is fine, which is out there. This number has come down a bit. There's questions about Jamar Chase and his availability. I think he'll probably give it a go. He might not be at 100%, and that back could flare up at any time. That was another thing that killed the over last week. When if Burrow just let him, he would walk in for a touchdown. Instead, he gets hurt. Talk about a massive swing there. But this is on paper just number one. It's a bad spot for the Bengals. They come off that big win against Buffalo. They have Baltimore on deck, and now you're hosting Houston. So it could be maybe a little bit sleepy here. But more importantly, I just think this Houston offense and CJ Stroud are undervalued in the market. Like this offense, when they actually come out and throw it, like looking back at that Panthers game, I don't know what they're doing. They can't run the ball. I think if you go by DVOA, they're 31st in rush offense, 3rd in pass offense. I mean, CJ Stroud is amazing. Tank Dell is amazing. This offense can tear up any secondary, including this Bengals. I mean, look, the Bengals defense, I think, is one of the more, they have a great coordinator, but it's one of the more overrated units in the NFL. I don't love their secondary. Their safeties have taken a massive step back after last season. And if you remember last season, they faced about 10 backup quarterbacks throughout the division and just throughout the entire season. Almost lost to a backup quarterback in the playoffs. And this season, they have been extremely fortunate on defense, especially in the red zone. Go back the last 3 weeks against the 49ers. They give up 460 yards to the 49ers. You had a McCaffrey fumble inside the 10. When's that ever happened? You had that fluky defensive lineman pick. Go back to the Seattle game. They're in the red zone the entire game. Outgained Cincy by 200 yards. They couldn't punch it in the end zone. And then last week, you have another fumble in the red zone. I mean, this is happening all year. If you look at the Bengals from a pure metrics standpoint, their defense, middle of the road. If you remove turnovers, 25th EPA per play, 23rd dropback EPA. This defense is vulnerable. They've been getting away with it because of turnovers and failed red zone execution. I think that there's some major regression coming, and this is the perfect offense to come in here and do it. Chase being banged up will only hurt the Texans. And look, if the Texans come out and try to run it, I hope not. I hope that Bobby Slovic has learned his lesson. And they get behind, that's fine for this game script. Like, they can keep up. And then that's when Cincy gets too conservative when they're up and they start running it too much. So even if they get behind early, because look, the Bengals offense is bad. Burrow is all the way back. I think if you look, yards over replacement adjusted for defense over the first, I think, 6 weeks, Burrow 2 total yards over replacement level quarterback. Week 8, 194. Week 9, 165. So Burrow's all the way back. This Bengals offense should be able to put up points. But Chase not being 100% healthy will definitely hurt. And this is a bad spot. And I don't think the Texans offense is getting enough respect. Throw in the looming Bengals regression on defense. And I think that the Texans can keep this within a score. Wouldn't even be shocked if they gave the Bengals a scare or pulled off this upset. And let's go with the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud, who's having one of the greatest rookie seasons of all time for any quarterback statistically. So give me the Texans.
Yeah, love the Texans. CJ Stroud is just, it's other, like, his upside now is it's growing. Like, I'm not gonna say Mahomes because he's in a different planet, but it's like that next tier, like that, his upside is already there. Like what he did in that game against the Bucs. I mean, the pinpoint throws, like the throwing with anticipation, the accuracy. I mean, it was just the clutchness, not having a kicker. I mean, Jesus, this guy.
Yeah, he can make all throws. And Tank Dell, by the way, he's got future. He's got
my
future
guy.
All-pro. I loved him in college. I loved Tank Dell at Houston. He's got future all-pro potential.
Oh yeah, like I remember for fantasy flex, I saw the first Texan preseason game, and Dell was playing a ton in the first half, or maybe it was the second game, one of the two. But the first time he played, and I was like, this dude is already the best receiver on the Texans, and like you're just seeing that play out. Because as much credit as we got to give to Stroud, Tank Dell got open on that sideline route to get him that long gain to get him in scoring position, and he split 2 defenders in the end of like that. So like that doesn't happen without Tank Dell as well. But I think what you're seeing with Stroud too is he's just star quarterbacks make all the receivers look like stars, and I think Dell is a star. But look at Nico now. Nico is he's always solid, but now he's putting up top 20 fantasy numbers. Noah Brown had 150-yard game. I mean, it's Dalton Schultz had more yards than he ever had on Dallas. I mean, this is one of the few offenses that can go toe to toe with the healthy Bengals team. And maybe they're not healthy, like you said, because Jamar Chase.
Yeah, and by the way, people are like, the right call was not kicking that extra point. You don't have a kicker, you can't allow a return. Yeah. But people forget that, and I had to watch the Eagles recover all 3 fumbles in their own territory. But the Texans had 3 guys around a fumble to end the game, and they didn't get it, and it somehow bounced right to Mike Evans. And then it wouldn't have mattered if they went down and scored. So that's what made it even more brutal. But yeah, I like the Texans here. Where you going first?
So haven't done this much this year, but we are going back to the New England Patriots plus 1.5 in, where is it? London against the Indianapolis Colts. And I think this is a great matchup for the Patriots. There's not many because this is a bad team, but the Indianapolis Colts defensively, let's look at what they do.
I think it's in Frankfurt, by the way. Not that.
Oh, sorry. I said London. Yeah, Frankfurt. NFL International Series. It'll be on 6:30 Pacific, 9:30 Eastern. No, yeah. So bright and early, but Indianapolis on defense. We know what they do. Gus Bradley defense. They play the most zone in the entire NFL. Well, New England, we know their passing game isn't great. Your receiving core isn't great, although Douglas is starting to come on a little bit. But New England dead last in adjusted yards per attempt versus man coverage, as you would expect. But versus zone coverage, they're above average. They're actually 13th, about 3 more yards per against zone than against man. And the Colts, more than any other team, are almost guaranteed not to switch up their scheme. They just don't do it. They just sit back. They don't really blitz. They just play zone coverage. They've done it over 80% of the time this year. It's just what they do.
89% zone. They're in cover 3, 50% league high. Cover 4, 24%. Cover 6, which is a mix of those. So the 89, man 11, that's the same exact splits as the Panthers. And those are the 2 highest. There's just no man. Vikings kind of the same way. There's just no man defense at all.
Yeah. And, well, why is this even better? Because not only is it a good matchup for the New England offense, and I say I tread lightly, good matchup, but New England's also seen the second most man coverage this year, from other defenses. So you're getting value in the sense that New England's offensive numbers are coming against, a much higher rate of man coverage than the league average. And that makes sense because, that's the way you play New England. But we know Gus Bradley just doesn't do that. Like they're gonna play their scheme, and especially coming off a really good game in their scheme against Bryce Young last week. So like the matchup there. And then also New England, Indianapolis defense been pretty solid, been about league average overall in terms of the numbers, but 23rd in run defense DVOA. So you let New England run the ball a little bit too. So this is a great matchup for New England's offense, which you don't really get much of that, this year with what's going on with this team. And then on the other side, you have a quarterback in Gardner Minshew, one of the few quarterbacks that is more likely than Mac Jones to have a negative play. Gardner Minshew's 6.3% turnover worthy play rate, 3rd in the league. Mac Jones is 5.2%, so he's 5th. So you have one of the few quarterbacks that's that's more turnover prone than Mac Jones, even though not all the turnovers are Jones' fault. But and then you have the New England defense, 6th in EPA per rush, 3rd in rush success rate, and on early downs, they're 4th in EPA per rush and 2nd in early down rush success rate. So this New England defense can still stop the run, which is what the Colts are going to lean on with Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss. And they had, like you said, they had under 200 yards of offense last week. They couldn't run the ball on the Panthers, which was, I think, pretty concerning for their offense. So, fading Gardner Minshew here in this Colt offense. Minshew's 4-15 against the spread in his last 19 starts. Again, another quarterback that's been, just as bad or worse than Mac Jones, because, I know I talked about Jones's record against the spread last week when we faded the Pats with Washington. But yeah, love the matchup for New England. So neutral field, no home field for the Colts. This is close to a coin flip game for me. I'll take the 1.5.
Yeah, don't hate it. I'll something on this game later. For my second pick and the 3rd overall, the Week 10 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going to go with the Green Bay Packers against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Anything 3 or above is fine. 3.5 minus 115, minus 120 are out there as when we're doing this. I would pay for that because there's a good chance that this game could land on a field goal. I actually had the Packers rated ahead of the Steelers in my power ratings. Throwing home field, I have the Steelers as a small favorite. Getting a field goal or above in this matchup, I have to take it. Look, the Steelers, I don't really think should be a field goal favorite over anybody in the league that is not named the New York Giants right now. I know they have 5 wins on the season. They are number 1 in our luck rankings. I'll shout out to Nick Giffen and company for Kerner for our luck rankings. And it's a really good tool just to kind of sum up a picture of everything that I look at. As far as which teams are getting lucky, which teams might be over or underinflated in the market. Talked about Cincinnati. Talk about the Eagles. The Eagles, I think, are number 2 now in the luck rankings, 2 or 3. Steelers are number one going away. I mean, this team, based on how they perform, should have 2 wins. They have 35% win. Their win percentage is 35% higher than how they performed. And look, some of the other advanced metrics, you'll see the Steelers a bit higher than the Packers. That's because their schedule's been tough. But like getting multiple defensive touchdowns against the Browns, these things are not sustainable. The Ravens having 1 million drops and Lamar just throwing it to the end zone. I mean, it is insane the breaks the Steelers team has gotten. They are 5-0 in 1-score games, expected wins of 2. And if you go back to 2020 and 2021, interestingly enough, the Steelers were 13-3 combined, number 1 in our luck rankings at that point. And people are like, oh, it's a Steelers and a Tomlin thing. Well, then they would win every game and win every Super Bowl. They finished 8-1 after that point against a softish schedule too. Packers, on the other hand, they're 30th in those luck rankings, 1-3 in 1-score games. They have 3 losses by a combined 7 points. Aaron Jones back to full health. He should get a full workload now from everything that I've read. This Steelers offense is still an absolute disaster. 47% of their possessions go 3 and out. 47. That's outrageous. I think the next worst team, and the Packers are bad too, but they're like 37%. Just to illustrate how bad the Steelers offense actually is, they have 1 play. They just try to throw it down the sidelines to Pickens. I mean, Johnson being back helps a little bit, but it's still Kenny Pickett laying over field goal. I bought to 3.5 minus 115. Absolutely no-brainer play for me with Green Bay. This is also a classic Tomlin non-spot where his teams come out a little flat and against a team under 500. But I make this round 1, so I'm happily took 3.5 minus 115 with the Packers against a Steelers team that has just a ton of regression coming its way.
Yeah, I was thinking about this because I agree. This is just another example of these bad quarterbacks, and you could say there's bad quarterbacks on both sides. I mean, depending on how you. I mean, I know Jordan Love hasn't exactly lit it up, but
they're basically like equal quarterbacks, like equal defenses. Packers probably a little better offensive line, a little better running back. Like Steelers maybe a little better wide receivers. These teams are so equal. I actually had the Packers a smidge ahead. So getting over a field goal at 3.5 in a game that could be ugly. And look, the Packers have been awful in the first halves. Didn't bite them last week because guess what? They were playing the Rams and Brett Rippon. If they get off to a slow start here, it won't bite them either. They're playing Kenny Pickett, right? So you can survive a slow start if that's the case. But yeah, give me Green Bay.
Yeah, and this is, again, Kenny Pickett getting, laying 3.5, at some spots. I mean, we're not saying that, Jordan Love and his Packer team is amazing, or it's just, you can't just look at these lines and say, okay, well, the Steelers are at home field advantage, that they're the right side. Like, no, like just take these opportunities to fade these quarterbacks when, they're laying, points, like a field goal or more at home, anything on the road. I mean, we'll talk about, a lot of there's some quarterbacks, bad quarterbacks laying points on the road. So it's just, it's been a wild year. I mean, just so many backup quarterbacks, and it's like backups are getting hurt, and backups are coming in. So speaking of which, for my second pick of the week 10 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going with the Minnesota Vikings plus 2.5 at home against the New Orleans Saints. And, both of these teams are 5-4, kind of surprising based on the way Minnesota started the year. But, even with Josh Dobbs, who, by the way, played amazingly last week, but I think
with no prep, no prep, took a snap. Wow, amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, some of his scrambles, like it was like I haven't seen Michael Vick make some like as good a plays as some of those scrambles, like the one where he just like flew across the first down marker on 3rd and 20 or something. Like, I mean, it was nuts. But that is going. I think that's going to be a problem for the Saints because the Saints have allowed the second most rushing yards to opposing quarterbacks. So that is one of the ways you beat them, because the Saints like to play man coverage, and that their outside corners are pretty good. So you have to, kind of, their backs are going to be turned. That's where you can get yardage, on the ground. You could go over the middle. So it's important to have a guy like Hawkinson as well. But when I look at these teams, I think it's time to fade New Orleans, because look at New Orleans' schedule this year and then compare it to Minnesota, and look at who New Orleans beat. New Orleans beat Carolina. They lost to Green Bay by a point. They beat the Titans by a point, and Ryan Tannehill is probably one of the worst games, if not the worst game he's ever played. They beat the Panthers by 3. Just 3.
Titans also had a defensive touchdown that wasn't called in that game.
Yep. They get the Patriots at the right time, so they blow them out. They beat the Colts, who we just talked about, not a very good team. And then they beat the Tyson Bagent Bears. So they beat Tyson Bagent, Gardner Minshew, Mac Jones, Bryce Young, and Ryan Tannehill. So, but then you look at.
By the way, they have Falcons, Panthers, Giants, Rams coming up.
Yep, like this, it's going to be very interesting. Yeah, I mean, we talked about like this whole division schedule is super easy, but this team, lost to the Green Bay Packers, lost to the Bucks by 17. They lose to the Texans, which doesn't look as bad anymore. But you look at this team on the road, and like this. I think this is where they're going to get into trouble, because Derek Carr in his career on the road, coming off a win, 11-22 against the spread, 1-8 as a favorite. Dennis Allen as a favorite, 5-14-1 against the spread, 26%. So I already think it's a letdown spot for these Saints. But let's look at what happened last week. They got outgained 368-301 by the Tyson Bagent-led Bears. They've been getting super lucky with turnovers in every game. And we know the Vikings have been one of the most unlucky teams with turnovers. So, even last week, I mean, Dobbs, safety, it's like 3 turnovers the minute he comes in the game. So, I think there's going to be some regression there. And you look at you look at Derek Carr versus the blitz, and Flores has his defense playing well. Like everyone talks about the Saints defense. They're 9th in DVOA. You know who's 10th? The Minnesota Vikings. So these teams are pretty much equal on defense. And Carr outside the top 20 against the blitz. He's 23rd in passer rating, 24th in PFF grade against the blitz. That's what we know Flores is going to do. And a lot of these Saints losses this year have come against teams that blitz Derek Carr. And, the games they've had the most success against, like look at the Colts, they put up 500 yards of offense on the Colts, because the Colts just sit back and don't blitz. And so I think the Saints team, is something of a paper tiger here. And I look at this Minnesota team and look who they played. And I know, there's a lot of different players, obviously Cousins is not here, but Minnesota played Philadelphia, the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Niners, who they beat. It's really a tale of two schedules for these two teams. So for the Vikings to be playing this well on defense, they're at home. I think these teams are a lot more evenly matched than even with Dobbs at quarterback and without Jefferson, who practice window should open this week, but I don't expect them back. But give me the Vikings here. Time to fade this Saints team that's just been beaten up on bad teams that play right into what they do. I don't think Derek Carr's been very good. I think he's just had some defenses that they can do some things against. I don't think this is going to be one of them.
Yeah, I got to give a ton of credit to Brian Flores, what he's done with his defense. Just the lack of coverage ability that they have on the outside. They're not playing any man. It is, a lot, like almost half cover 3, a lot of drop. They'll drop 8 sometimes, and then they're bringing the blitz a ton. So he's able to generate pressure. They're taking away explosive plays. They have deep safeties all the time. They're making you earn it and moving up and down the field. And then he's coming with timely blitzing. blitzes, creating negative plays. Danielle Hunter's been awesome. So, yeah, Flores deserves a ton of credit what he's done with this unit. Just on scheme alone, it's a night and day difference, and it shows you what one coordinator hire can do for an entire unit. We're seeing it with the Ravens offense now, right? Like, look how stale that offense got last year. Now that offense is a rocket ship. And last year, this Vikings defense was a train wreck, and they got worse. They got rid of talent, and now just scheme alone. So, yeah, I'm sure you're going to get a million car checkdowns against this type of defense. So I don't know how many catches you have projected for Kamara. He's going to have one of those 13 catches for 35-yard games.
I mean, they used him a lot less last week too. You know, he was having some trouble against the Bears, but it's either that or Carr just going to throw a bunch of balls out of bounds on the sidelines to Olave, who's going to like look back at him like, why are you even throwing it to me?
Yeah.
So
I agree on this one. More on it in later on in a segment in the podcast. But for my third pick and the fifth overall, the Week 10 Sunday 6-pack, I'm going. Let's get fun here. I'm going with the Dallas Cowboys, 16.5 minus 16.5 at home against the New York Giants. I think I've always said I'll never lay over 2 touchdowns in the NFL. What do they say? Never say never, because I have. I bet the Cowboys. I bet them. I think I'd still bet them at 17, but try to get under 17. I project this at 19.4. Now there's a lot of variance in that number. Like, how bad can you make Tommy DeVito? But bad is the answer. It's very, very bad. He's the worst quarterback I've ever tried to price. The one exception was when Kendall Hilton, the wide receiver for the Broncos, had to start during COVID. I think they were 17-point underdogs. By the way, this number, like, go back a couple weeks when I bet the Giants, catching 14.5 against a bottom 5 Bills defense after injuries with Tyrod Taylor. Now you have Tommy DeVito, massive, massive, monumental drop-off with against the top 5 defense, and you're in the same similar price range. This line's outrageous. The Cowboys offense is on fire right now. Talked about this last week. They're doing everything that I've wanted them to do. Dak's using his legs. They're throwing more on first downs. Ferguson's implementation of the offense. They're just a machine. Right? Offensive line is now fully healthy. There's just nothing the Giants can do to slow them down. And on the other side of the ball, what are the Giants? What are the Giants going to do to score? They already lost 38-0 to this team, by the way. What are they going to do? I don't know. Tommy DeVito is going to be under fire. He's going to throw picks. The Dallas Cowboys are just going to play man on the outside. And by the way, the Dallas Cowboys defense also trending up. Deron Bland, who's been great at corner. Marquise Bell at linebacker. They figured it out after the loss of Diggs. I just don't know how the team total for the Giants is 10.5. I'd take the under. 10.5. You never see a team total low in the NFL. This Giants team lost 30. There's one data point, but last week against a bottom 5 defense that lets you do anything, right? Just no pressure. You can have your efficiency. They lost 30-6 to the Raiders, and Aiden O'Connell at quarterback. 30-6. Cowboys, by the way, have 17+ point wins already this year against the Jets, Patriots, and Rams. So when they get a bad team and that offense is rolling, they blow them out, because then the defense can pin its ears back, go after the quarterback. I don't know. You get an angry Cowboys team. There's no look ahead. They had the Panthers on deck. I just, number one, I don't know how the Giants score. Barkley's got to break a run. That's it. He's got to break an 80-yard run. And I don't know how the Giants slow down this Cowboys offense, which is rolling. Like, the Cowboys are going to have to fumble multiple kicks, fumble punts. Brandon Aubrey's going to have to remember he's a soccer player. I just don't know. I can't find a path where this isn't a complete blowout. This has 35-3 written all over it. Give me the Cowboys. I think it's the first time in my life I've laid over 2 touchdowns in the NFL, and I have no hesitation. It doesn't cover, I don't care. I'm fading Tommy DeVito. Guy couldn't play. Guy had to transfer out of Syracuse. Couldn't start at Syracuse. Give me the Cowboys. They better score in the red zone, by the way. They got some regression coming. They better finish off every single drive this week with 6.
Dak, when favored by 6 or more in his career, 27-11 against the spread, 71% 3-1 against the spread this year. That is outrageous. You usually don't see trends for favorites, 70% over that big of a sample size. So this
usually if you go back, it makes sense in a sense that the Cowboys always have had, good pass rush, good, decent secondary. So when they get up against a bad team, right, then that's when their defense, if they're in a close game or behind and teams are able to run the ball against them. But if they get up and they build a big lead, then it usually snowballs because that's when their defense is even better. And now you have that scenario against Tommy DeVito. Come on. They had negative pass yards against the Jets defense. Negative pass yards.
Speaking of which, that'll take me to my third pick and the final one of the Week 10 Sunday six-pack. And I am going with the Las Vegas Raiders +1 at home against the New York Jets, and got to fade Zach Wilson laying points on the road here. And, this Jet team, I think it's going to keep the bottom's going to keep falling out here. I know their defense is great, but let's look, 2 weeks ago, they play the Giants, and you mentioned it. They hold the Giants to -9 passing yards. -9 passing yards. They need a comeback 2-minute drive with the clock running down just to tie it and then to win in overtime. When you hold the team to -9 passing yards.
Or kick a field goal. Like the Giants should have won that game. Giants 99.9% win probability.
And so let's now compare that. The Jets had a 0.1% win probability against the Giants at one point in the game with -9 passing yards. The Raiders beat this team 30-6. So not good. Same thing. And look at O'Connell also started against the Chargers. He was on the goal line and had a chance to tie the game. And, they called pass play and it ended up getting picked up. But even it took 9-10 sacks. They were right in that game with a chance to tie late. The Jets can't even sniff the end zone against the Chargers. 27-6. So you already have a couple of common opponents, to kind of judge this off of, even though, O'Connell's only started a couple of games, both of those starts have come against teams the Jets have also played, and the Raiders have looked better against those teams. The Jets offensive line is terrible right now. It's just all banged up. Max Crosby's going to get off, and, the Jets' strength obviously is their defense, their pass defense. But at least you have, Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers. So, it's you don't have, you have guys that can at least give you a chance, especially Adams against these cornerbacks. So, just two bad teams. But the Raiders, I think it's also going to be tough for the Jets to game plan because you're in game 2 of this Antonio Pierce regime. They changed the offensive coordinator. So, it's going to be really tough for the Jets. And also another reason I think the Jets are a little bit overvalued and why they're favored on the road with Zach Wilson. They've only played 2 road games. This is just going to be their third road game because they had a road game that was the Giants, but that's their stadium too. So that's not really a road game. So the only road games the Jets have had week 2 at Dallas and week 5 at the Broncos. So you look at all the Jets stats and, as you're kind of handicapping this, they played 8 games and they've only had 2 road games. So, we know teams play worse on the road. They're going across the country. Raiders chilling second straight home game. They had the Giants come in last week. They're riding high. So I think the Raiders can keep it going here and do enough to beat this Jet team. And this is when you want to fade Zach Wilson, when he is a favorite or an underdog of less than 6 points. So if he's +5.5 or less, or he's a favorite, he's just 1-6-1 against the spread in his last 8. The times the Jets are covering are when they're, one possession or more dogs, and their defense kind of keeps them in it, or they get lucky, like with the Eagles. But in these spots, this is a fade all the way. We saw this Jet team, just continue to struggle to score points at the end of last year with Zach Wilson, and it's starting to happen again. It seems like the deeper you get into the season, the more tape you get this offense just doesn't have answers. And it sounds like Saleh doesn't even really want to stay. It sounds like this is more of an ownership decision at this point. I don't even know. Like he's like, they're not calling up Simeon, even though he's there. So I don't see this offense doing much, and that's going to give the Raiders a chance here at home because a Zach Wilson led Jet offense can be just as bad as a O'Connell offense facing the Jets. So give me the Raiders +1.
Yeah, I mean, fading Zach Wilson is a favorite. Yeah, one thing I would worry about is just Breece Hall going off. Like that's the only time the Jets offense looks competent. But the way to move the ball against this Raiders defense, I talked about it. They sit back and they don't. All they want to do is take away explosive plays, and it works for the most part in today's NFL. Keeps you in the game. But if you can like efficiently pass the ball down the field, you can move the ball against this secondary. But that's not what the Jets can do. Zach Wilson isn't accurate enough. Max Crosby will end up stripping him a couple times. Marcus Peters will probably have a pick six when Zach Wilson doesn't, when he just telegraphs a throw to the sidelines. That's what happens, right? You make a bad quarterback drive all the way down the field, and then they make a mistake. So yeah. And for what it's worth, I know coming into the season, I'll have to check this. Is this a primetime game? God damn it. Yep. Zach Wilson in primetime twice in 6 days. So one of us will have this game written up. I'll probably give this to you. I'll take Bills, Broncos. But I know coming into this year, you can check this. But coming into this season, see if my memory is good. Teams going from the East Coast teams going to the West Coast after a primetime game on a short week doesn't happen often. So Jets played Monday night, going now short week going across the country. 8-16 against the spread over the past 20 years. So it's something with the body clock, and obviously short week doesn't help. But yeah, I think the Raiders are rejuvenated. How can you not be after getting rid of maybe the worst coach in the NFL? So don't disagree. Who do we got for quarterbacks?
Woo! We have, let's see. Okay, so you got CJ Stroud, good. Jordan Love, Dak Prescott, solid. So you got some decent quarterbacks. I got Mac Jones, Josh Dobbs, and Aiden O'Connell, baby. Second week in a row. I'm out uglying you.
Yeah, we've switched roles here the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, man. Hey, I mean, it's been one of those years, it's like I said it, it's just kind of, I mean, it's a lot of it is just fading bad quarterbacks getting points, or laying points. So fading Zach Wilson, fading Carr, and fading Minshew. So, equally bad on the other side of it. But you got Stuck has Houston +7, Pack +3, Cowboys -16.5. I have Pats +1.5, Vikes +2.5, and the Raiders +1. That's going to wrap it up for our Week 10 Sunday 6-pack. All right, now it's time for our Week 10 Coach's Pep Talk.
Your only responsibility is to put meat on the table. You got to stay relaxed. Yeah. If you don't, you will fall out of balance, split your differential, and tip the fuck over. Or worse yet, I've seen this happen, implode.
This week's Coach's Pep Talk comes to us from the 2013 film, The Wolf of Wall Street. Love that movie. And we're dedicating it to, let's dedicate it to the Las Vegas Raiders. Keep it going. Get us that cover against Zach Wilson as a road favorite. Let's get into our favorite total of Week 10. All right, we're a combined 11-7 on the year on total, so pretty good. You went first on side, so I'll start us off here. I'm going right back to the well. Pittsburgh, Green Bay, first half under 19.5. Talked about this last week. Green Bay, one of the slowest paced teams in the league in the first half, and also the lowest scoring team in the league in the first half. Green Bay averaging just 4.5 points per game in the first half. And Pittsburgh is also a bottom 5 scoring team in the first half, just 6.9 points per game.
Eddie Pickett's only good on like the last drive of the game.
Yeah, I mean, he was out there throwing one hoppers to Allen Robinson, and I don't know how many balls he missed high on a Thursday night. Maybe some of it had to do with the rib, but I mean, we've seen this from Pickett kind of throughout his career. He turns up in the fort, though. I give him that. But yeah, I think you want the first half under in this one. Also, and we didn't even really get into this when we talked about the Packers for your side, but Green Bay, we know another team that we kind of know what they're going to do on defense. They're a top 6 zone team. You know, they love to sit back in zone. Sometimes it's maddening because they'll do it on rundowns and instead of, you know, coming up close. But Pittsburgh, 4th in adjusted yards per attempt against man coverage, 24th against zone, over a 4-yard difference in adjusted yards per attempt.
Well, that's because the sideline throws to Pickens can work against man.
Right. I mean, Deontay, like you said, Deontay has helped and he looks really good out there. Glad he finally got himself in the end zone. But yeah, we kind of know what this Green Bay defense is going to do. And, you know, everything we've seen from Pickett thus far, you know, don't expect too much through the air. I do think both of these teams probably want to run in this game, right? You know, Pittsburgh started to get the run established with Najee Harris and Jalen Warren last game. And we know the Packers, you know, Aaron Jones finally healthy to get his first 20 carry game of the year. So I think both of these teams will try to run. So even if you do have, you know, get some scoring drives, should bleed some clock, especially when Green Bay has it. They're, again, one of the slowest paced teams in the first half. So Green Bay first half unders this year, 6-1-1. Pittsburgh first half unders are 5-3. So that's 11-4-1 combined to the first half under for these two teams. Give me the first half under. Pack Steelers 19.5.
All right, yeah, you're going right back to the well. So am I. Going with another Browns under, right in the same price range. Go under 38 in Baltimore. This Browns offense is broken. Not only is Deshaun Watson either washed or just not healthy, you can just look at his throws downfield. I mean, Amari Cooper is not fixing anything. Jerome Ford, if you look from an efficiency standpoint, has been the worst running back in the NFL. A couple long runs, that's about it. Now your tackle situation is compromised. You're down both your starting tackles, and DeJuan Jones didn't practice today. I mean, you could be down to, I believe, Jaron Christian or Alex Leatherwood starting at tackle opposite James Hudson. So what was once a strength is now an overwhelming weakness on the outside for the Browns. The Ravens are going to take advantage, bring pressures, simulated pressures. And the Ravens, Mike McDonald is, I think, maybe right now the best defensive coordinator in the NFL. They are so multiple in what they do depending on who they play each week. And they could do so many different things. Man, zone. You saw what they did to Goff, knowing he was, you know, and then you saw what they did to Geno Smith at the perfect game plan. Well, the Browns offense this year is impoverished against zone. They cannot do anything. For what it's worth, the other horrible zone offenses are the Jets, Titans, and Steelers, who we just talked about. Like, just horrible zone offenses. So I expect you'll see some different pressures, some simulated pressures to confuse Watson, more zone heavy from the Ravens this week. And on the other side of the ball, the Browns are the most man heavy defense in the NFL. And this year with this new offense, they're advanced by like cover one man. I think like over about half the time they play no cover 4, no cover 6 at all. This is a man heavy defense. We'll see if Emerson can play. He's important because then he can play straight man across the board. And his backup went on IR today. But regardless, they're going to play a lot of man here. And the Ravens offense has destroyed zone defenses. One of the reasons I love them against the Lions and the Seahawks. But against man, they've bottom 10 EPA per play. Lamar is an equal touchdown and interception percentage against man defense. Now, he'll be able to use his legs and probably create a few explosives here. You saw that in the first matchup with Cleveland. So, you know, and because the Browns are such an aggressive defense, he might hit a couple explosives against them. But this is the best defense in the league. They already saw Lamar, which helps when he's see him for a second time over a short period of time. Browns are going to have to rely on their defense in this game. I just don't know how much their offense is going to be able to do, but their defense actually matches up well on paper against Baltimore. Throw in the injuries for Cleveland, and this should be a low-scoring game. If the Ravens also build a big lead, they'll just go super conservative, knowing they can rely on their defense. They play slow. This is setting up as a classic second meeting division under in November, which have had a lot of success outdoors historically. So give me the Browns, Ravens under in the Charm City. By the way, I have the Ravens power rated number 1 now in the NFL. What are their Super Bowl odds? I think you can get like 10-1. I think over the next couple weeks, home games against the Browns and Bengals, win those games. I think that they should be like 5-6-1 with like the Chiefs. I mean, they're in the same price range as the Lions. Come on. I mean, I don't know the Lions are in the NFC, a much easier path, but I'm going to dabble. I'm always excited to bet my team on the Super Bowl when I see a little bit of value. This Ravens team is really good in all phases. So yeah, give me Baltimore, and I'm going to throw a little on their Super Bowl odds.
Yeah, I mean, don't mush it. Don't, Lamar Jackson needs to make it. They have a week 13 bye. Like, let's get Lamar to the bye and coming out of the bye healthy. Last 2 years, he's missed like the last, 12 on. It's around that time. This is the game.
Well, hopefully he doesn't miss time, because remember on our preseason pods, my 14-1 MVP, I think he's down to like 3-1 at some shops.
Yeah, that's wide open.
Stay healthy. Fingers crossed. I mean, it's either him, Mahomes, or Hurts, I think. But there's Mahomes fatigue. Hurts is dealing with an injury. He's in the NFC. Right now, I think Lamar's the favorite.
I mean, I think he might be the favorite on the books, but I still feel like he needs like a couple of like big monster games, because Gus Edwards is stealing all his touchdowns. That's the issue.
Yeah, these blowouts, not getting a lot of touchdowns, definitely isn't ideal. But let's see. You're going to play the Chargers defense, then the Rams defense, the Jags defense, the Dolphins defense. There's some opportunities here. And let's see. They also play like the Niners, the Dolphins, the Jags, the Bengals, the Chargers. The good thing is those are good offenses.
Yep.
So you want that. You want to keep up scoring. Like, this might not be a big touchdown week, but I like the under. This is like, I'll call it. I would have thought about the Browns here at this price range if they were fully healthy, and I trusted Watson to be, just trusted him in general and knew that he was fully healthy. I show a little bit of value on the Browns, but it's just hard for me to find paths to success for this offense. So give me the under.
All right, so we got I still got that Hurts ticket for MVP. He's looking pretty decent too. I mean, they haven't really hit gear yet, and he's on pace for, I think it's 42, 43 touchdowns in total. So that's
I think it's him, Hurts, or Mahomes.
Yeah, and Mahomes has really had kind of a down year. I mean, he's kind of it hasn't been like hey, he could turn it on in the second half. It doesn't take much, but. I think it's wide open for a non-Mahomes winner. So, okay. So Baltimore, Cleveland under 38, Pittsburgh, Green Bay first half under 19.5. Time for our favorite teasers of week 10. All right. So for those unfamiliar with teasers, it's when you get an extra allotment of points to parlay with 2 or more spread bets. Usually the standard is a 2-team 6-point teaser. So that would mean an 8.5 point favorite becomes a 2.5 point favorite. A 2.5 point underdog becomes an 8.5 point underdog, for example. So Stuck has a lot of great content out talking about, what numbers he's looking to tease through and his whole philosophy on that. Stuck is 7-2 this year. You're 7-2.
You watched me last week when you rode along.
Yeah, I know, right? It's
really, it was Bryce Young. I mean, I hold the team to under 200 yards and not cover an 8.5 point leg teaser is like a once in a lifetime event.
That's what I get for back in Carolina. It's like the only time I even gave out Carolina anything this whole year. So that's my fault. But where are you going this week?
Yeah, let's go with a classic teaser teasing two teams catching under a field goal up over a touchdown in games that should be lower scoring, totals under 44. With the Vikings, already talked about them earlier in the episode, and the Patriots. I'm teasing two of your picks. So Patriots to 7.5, Vikings to 8.5, and also this is my favorite teaser on the board, and it ensures that I'll have I would have been rooting for you in the podcast anyway, but now I'll have a financial interest in the Frankfurt game early Sunday morning.
So going Vikings from 2.5 to 8.5, and Cardinals from 1.5 to 7.5, and Kyler Murray coming back. We saw the Falcons struggle against scrambling, and we're gonna have another unprepared quarterback that can scramble. Doesn't bode well for this Falcon team that I know you and I had high hopes for. And who is this new Arthur Smith? Like, who is this? Where's the Arthur Smith that actually made sense? Like, I don't know who this guy is. He's like,
he makes plenty of sense. He's a
billionaire. Yeah, I know that, but that's about it.
He's got plenty of sense, but not the other sense, maybe.
But I mean, listen, every coach is going to do some things that at some point or another, we're not going to agree with. But I just feel like Arthur Smith at one point was pretty sharp offensive mind.
Yeah.
I just don't know what happened. I think, you know what it is? Because there's, in this, I think this applies to a few different teams, but there's a difference between play design and play calling. And I think Arthur Smith, he's struggling in both facets right now. Like, it used to be, he would have really good play calling, and the design, would be what it was. But when he was with the Titans, I mean, the way he would just marry the run and the pass and the play action and red zone, like, he could call plays. Now it's like, I just don't like. It's like every play he's trying to outsmart somebody. I feel like that's true of a lot of these offensive minded guys. Like, remember that Lions Raider game? Like, the Raiders are out there shit in the bed, and like the Lions, had just as much to complain about, even though they won the game, because they're like, Ben Johnson was just calling stupidness in the red zone. So like, I think Slowick has like that issue too in Houston. He, his play designs are pretty decent, but what he like took Stroud off the field to go Wildcat on like 2nd and goal when they had no kicker. It's like, bro, like, what? Like, stop trying to catch the defense off guard. Like, there's certain plays where it could just work without, like, the defense will know what's coming. Like, run plays, short yardage, like, those plays generally work. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So I've been noticing that a lot. But yeah, Arthur Smith is a chief offender. So yeah, unprepared scrambling quarterback. Love. Give me the Cardinals, and go with the Vikings, who they're always hanging around. Like, I don't think they've lost by 8 now. Let me make sure. I'm pretty sure the Vikings have played all 1-score games. Let's see.
That's all they do.
The Vikings have a 2-score win, no 2-score. Every loss has been by 1 score. 8 of their 9 games have been 1-score games. So yeah, the Vikings. And what's crazy about the Vikings this year? They already have a better point differential than they had last year when they won 13 games and had a negative point, and with a much harder schedule too. Like, you already played the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Chargers,
and a backup
Niners. Yeah, and a backup. Yeah, like,
Jefferson hurt.
You won. You beat the Niners without Jefferson. You're 3-0. You're 2-0 without. Well, not two. Well, technically Cousins went down in the Green Bay game, so yeah, he went down at the end. But you've weathered this losing Cousins so far. You've won 3 games all 3 games without Jefferson. Like, yeah, the coaching, they're doing like last year. We were like, oh, this Viking team is a fraud. This year, they're kind of impressive. Even O'Connell, coaching up Dobbs and, being able to kind of explain to him enough of what was going on with those plays so that he could, because, Dobbs made a few throws too. And it was mostly scrambling, but he did hit a few throws and made some good reads. So yeah, give me
Plus
Vikings.
They survived their inevitable turnover regression from last year. They had the onslaught of turnovers, and they're still above 500.
They survived all the Alexander Madison like silliness over the first like six weeks where he just couldn't hold on to the football.
Yeah, it's really a shame that Cousins got hurt.
Yeah, bro. I mean, hey, you're not
winning the Super Bowl. You're not winning the Super Bowl with Josh Dobbs.
You're not, but I don't know what to make of Josh Dobbs at this point, because that game he played against Atlanta, like the passing numbers don't look great. I think it was like 5.8 yards an attempt or whatever, but just some of the throws and some of the runs he made, and at the times he made it, like I've just like never seen anything like it, like honestly. So I'm intrigued by to see, like this Dobbs guy is very interesting. Like, he should have beat the Jaguars last year to get the Titans in the playoffs, and then I guess turnovers are his like Achilles heel.
He also
right?
the Falcons were. I don't think they did actually install a game plan for him. You can't let him scramble right like that, and he was doing that all game. You just can't let him do that, and every other team's started to not let him do that with how they were blitzing him. But maybe the Vikings, do you think the Vikings just aren't going to give him a game plan? Just send him home and tell him to show up on Sunday for the game like last week? No, but what an amazing feat. One of some of the stories you heard, like O'Connell was like showing him the plays during during the game. He never, like, insane. What a performance.
So they were saying like how like Josh Dobbs drops back in like for that game-winning touchdown. He's like, oh look, number 4, the number 1 target. Like, just another catch for him. It's like Brandon Powell's never had a catch this important in his fucking life. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, he's a career special teamer. Like, this is, I've just never seen anything like that. But it's not the first time. Like, Josh Dobbs has had a few, like even that game against the Cowboys. Like he's been playing well at times this year. It's like he's got something. But the turnovers are really, I think what's ultimately, he has to correct. But I could see him having a little run, make a little run, probably get to the playoffs and get blown out in the wild card or something like that.
Yeah.
But let's go
we have to move on before our producers
right.
kill us for talking about Josh Dobbs for 8 minutes.
Yeah. So we'll go to our Moneyline Underdog Parlay. Before we do that, a reminder that Action Network Podcast is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION, ACTION, when signing up to get up to $1,500 paid back in bonus bets if your first bet loses. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, Moneyline Dog, where are we going?
Yeah, last week I went with I've had a lot of success going with the quarterback uncertainty. I went with the Giants last week with the Raiders quarterback uncertainty. And oh boy, did I get hit with the old quarterback uncertainty and Tommy DeVito. Yeah. But I'm going to switch it up on you real quick. I was going to go Cardinals with the quarterback uncertainty there, but I'm going to go Chargers. I don't love this matchup for multiple reasons, but I show value in the number. Mm-hmm. And it's a Chargers game at the end of the day. So I think that there's value in this price with the Herbert, who his finger, I think, is impacting, I know it's his non-throwing finger, but just how he grips the ball. And I know the offense, it just isn't the same without Mike Williams. If you look at the splits, and the Lions play some coverages that might give Herbert some trouble and have historically. Also, I'm worried about Hutchinson on Trey Pipkins, which he could make a couple big plays, but 6 weeks is the timeline for when Herbert, that he should have his splint off his finger. And I'm also worried about on the other side of the ball, like the Chargers, their defense is going to be good when they can get pressure, especially with, you add the rookie in with Bosa and Mack, and you saw that last week against the Jets offensive line. But the Lions offensive line should be able to neutralize that a bit. And Goff destroys destroy zone. And so there's a couple things I don't like about the matchup. Otherwise, I would play the Chargers catching 3. So I'm going to go, and there's going to be no wind, and there's no really home field advantage. But I think for a moneyline dog shot with Herbert and this Chargers offense, which I think can take a lot from that dominant win over the Jets. They've been close to in a lot of games. So yeah, let's roll with the Chargers.
Now, I was thinking about them too. Honestly, I'm actually going to switch it up too. I was going to go with the Titans, but I don't like this matchup against the Bucks. Yeah, no, not with their injuries. So I'm going to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Getting, what is it? They are plus 135 at home against the Niners. And I feel like, everyone's kind of just thinking, Niners, where they lost 3 straight, definitely going to get right. Jaguars letdown spot. They've won 5 in a row. So everyone's just kind of chalking this one up to, a market correction at this point, I feel like. But this Jaguar team, I think this is kind of when you want to invest in them, when, they're underdogs, they're playing at home, probably have some heat here, and both teams coming off
Lawrence, the most wins as an underdog over the past 2 seasons. Most outright wins.
There you go. And both teams coming off a bye. So, it's not as big of an advantage as if just one were. Obviously San Francisco should be a little healthier, but this Jaguar team, they're tough to run on them, and they're actually getting pretty decent play now from their secondary, which I always felt was going to be their downfall. But Campbell's playing, he's playing well. Williams has played well, which is a little bit somewhat surprising, I guess. Herndon's been all right. What's his name? The safety of the Cisco, he's been pretty good. So the Jaguars defense is not as bad as I thought it was going to be to open the year. They got the Cleveland, the guard, so the offensive line should be a little bit better on the interior. It's tough to run on them, so maybe those McCaffrey runs, maybe he doesn't bust like an explosive. So I think the Jaguars can hang around here. So give me the Jags plus 135.
Yeah, but going back to the offenses against zones, the Texans, Ravens, Colts, and Lions this year have ripped apart zones. The Jets' offense is a 31% success rate against cover 3 and 4. That is horrendous. But this is I was ready to bet the 49ers here. Bounce back spot, getting healthier, coming off the bye, but I couldn't. And I dug into the matchup a bit. Trevor Lawrence, he has throughout his career, he's really struggled against cover 2. 49ers don't really play cover 2. Brock Purdy, if you go out of 141 season data points versus man coverage since 2021, so that means every quarterback that's qualified has a data point. So it'd be Patrick Mahomes 2021 EPA against man, Patrick Mahomes 2022. So the 141 data points against man coverage, Brock Purdy is number 4 and number 7 last year and this year in EPA per play against man coverage.
Jags play all zone.
Yeah, Jags play 80% zone. Purdy versus cover 3, 4, and 6, which is what you'll see predominantly from the Jags. 0% touchdown percentage, 5% interception rate, a 7% sack percentage. He's 25th out of 38 quarterbacks in quarterback rating against cover 3, 4, and 6. Against man, 8% touchdown rate, 0% interception rate, 3% sack rate. So this is not a good matchup. Purdy is just you saw it against the Vikings, right? He still has trouble processing where some guys are in zones. When it's against man with all these different weapons and he knows where everyone is and he can use his legs to extend plays, this Niners offense is unstoppable against man. So both sides of the ball, this is a decent matchup for the Jags. So I like it.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the Jags. I was hoping maybe we'd get a 3.5, but doubtful.
Yeah, I don't think the market will let that happen.
Yeah, no. But either way, we both got plus 135. Dogs, Chargers, and Jags. You parlay those. That's plus 452. If you are looking for a way to calculate parlay odds, be sure to check out the Action Network betting odds calculator, which you can find on actionnetwork.com or in the Action app. All right, time for best of the rest. Games we haven't covered in any other segment, but are still, as they say, meaningful to some. Seattle, Washington, or Washington at Seattle. I mean, not confuse the city and the state, or the district and the state, I should say. Commanders 6.5-point underdogs. The total is 45.5. I like what I see out of Sam Howell. I feel like he just has to, like, as far from an arm talent perspective and being able to make throws down the field, even some with anticipation. I think I like what I see. He just got to clean up.
He can make all the throws.
Farts. Yeah, it's just those brain farts. Like that pick against New England. I mean, that could have cost us the cover.
That was a horrendous throw. That was one of the worst throws you ever see.
Yeah.
But yeah, he just has to get his time, like his mental timing down, like mental clock. Like he's been good against the blitz when you have to get rid of it, but sometimes when he's not blitzed, he'll just hold the ball way too long, and then sometimes he'll make, as you said, brain farts. But he can make all the throws. I don't know if this could be a good matchup for the Seattle offense. Washington can't really do some of the things that these defenses that can play man and confuse Geno. I mean, Geno in Baltimore had no chance that he was confused, and they were playing man out. There was nothing he could do. The Seahawks knew it. That game was over in 5 minutes in. The Washington can't really do that. So this could be a good showing for the Seattle offense, because like you're going to see the Seattle offense lines. You're like, whoa, this Seattle offense looks pretty good, and Geno looks good. He's not confused back there. He's not facing a ton of really good man coverage on the outside. This could be one of those games. But I'm right on the number. And Sam Howell's still really unpredictable. He's going to be a high variance quarterback early on in his career. So, with the crowd noise, you could have a key mistake here too. So, but I'm right on the number. I got nothing here.
Yeah. It's a bounce back spot for Seattle. I think, teams with a winning percentage of 60% or better. Which I call good teams when I make the trend. So a good team off a blowout loss, which is 20 or more points, 81-39 the next week against the spread, 68% over the last 2 decades. So I think this was a similar spot to the Lions against the Raiders a couple weeks ago that I had on Monday night. So this is another one of those spots for Seattle. But I mean, I can see, Seattle's not really like they're solid. We've talked about this, but they don't like they could lose to anyone pretty much. Like the Seahawks could lose to almost anyone. So it's not a spot where I like really want to bet that based on the trend. I do think
Washington. I consider Washington for a money line dog. Like this is a high variance game.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't really want anything to do with the spread for Washington because like you said, it's kind of projections right there, but at the same time, the Seattle team, laying 6.5, it's a bit much, especially for against a team that does have at least a quarterback that can bring you back, maybe get you to win 3 late or something like that.
Yeah, if this hits 7, I'd probably dabble a little bit on Washington.
Yeah. And then we have the Titans at the Bucks. The Bucks are at home and are favored by a point. The total 38.5. And, I would love to continue fading the Bucks. They just haven't been good. It's just different things going wrong each and every week. But, this Titan team, now they have to start Dillard again. They lost, Petit Frere. And, their run defense has not been as good, but not that matters against the Bucks, but their pass defense is their weakness, which does matter against the Bucks. So, I mean, I'm surprised to see this total 38.5. I could, both of these teams could struggle in coverage. So I'm not a terrible money line dog, but you're not really getting, it's like -110 or on both sides. So nothing really for me to do with this one. I was hoping I could, have a spot to fade the Bucs. Maybe they would get like 2.5, but at +1, I'm not really doing anything. What about you?
Yeah, nothing here. If this gets back up to 1.5, 2.5, good teaser piece with the Titans. This will be another data point for me to watch Will Levis. I've been impressed with what I've seen so far. But you're right in that, like, the Titans' strength is still their run day on defense. The Bucs are a horrendous rushing team. So, like, this is just going to force the Bucs to throw.
And they get no pressure. Titans get no pressure.
So this is a good matchup for the Bucs offense and Baker Mayfield. Like, you're not generating a ton of natural pressure. You're forced to throw against a bad secondary. So there could be a lot of explosive plays here. But like you said, maybe on both ends. I don't hate the overlook, but I'm pretty on market here. Yeah,
since the bye, Bucs worst pass defense in the league. I mean, obviously that was, CJ Stroud, but it was even before that, their pass defense has not been great. Let's close it out with our survivor pool pick of the week. So went Washington, Giants, Chiefs, Niners in weeks 1 through 4, Dolphins, Bills, Seahawks, Ravens in 5 through 8, Saints last week, got it done. This week, got to go Dallas Cowboys. Just don't really see any spot that I like better than 16.5 and probably rising against Tommy DeVito and maybe Barkley or Eason or whoever. I don't know. Because every time you get like one of these trash backup quarterbacks, he seems to get hurt and you get like a trasher backup of the backup. So who knows who ends up finishing this game for the Giants. But the
DeVito Cowboys might quit it. DeVito might quit at the half.
Just like rage quit, just like turn off the system.
I'm done. I'm gone.
Take off the headset. Like, no, who did that? Vontae Davis. Vontae Davis. Yeah. But so the Cowboys play at Carolina in week 11. I guess that's next week. Yeah, next week. And then they're home against Washington in week 12. And like, those are the only two things, other games you'd even consider. And I think this Giants game is far superior. I mean, Washington is feisty and beat Dallas last year. If I'm not mistaken, Sam Howell beat the Cowboys in a game I think they were trying. And at Carolina is probably a win for the Cowboys, but still not as good as a home favorite against DeVito. So going Dallas here in week 10. Let's see if we can keep it going.
Good luck. Right. I'll be watching from the sidelines again for the 8th straight week because I took the Broncos.
I think I'm one of the last like 15 or 16 alive in our action survivors. So we'll see how that goes. The thing is, like, everyone listens to the pod, so they I'm at like a disadvantage because everyone kind of knows what I'm gonna do. One out of 16 left. So that is gonna do it for us, though. Thank you for listening. We'll be back every Thursday all season long. You can hear more of me this week with my guy Kerner talking fantasy, DFS, all that good stuff on the Fantasy Flex podcast. And check out the Action Network Discord server as well. The link will be in the episode description. You can hear Stuck talking college football over on a Big Bets on Campus pod Friday morning. And you can find Stuck on X at Stucky2. I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Until next time, let's get this money.